What is up, my friends? How are we? Oh, there's the intro. There we go. What is up, my friends? How are we? Nice to be with you. Apologies, I was a moment or two late, but as always, bit of madness in the Houlden household just before it's time to do the show. We're good to go. Any questions? Of course, we'll get to them. We'll talk about Antoine Semenyo tonight as, well, he's been in the news quite a bit today. We'll go through anything else that you guys would like to discuss. And as always, thank you so much for giving up some of your evenings to come and have a chat with me. I seen a comment there from Mighty Marvel that said, want you to make videos about tactics and formation. Do you want the honest answer? I find them boring. That's the honest answer. It's something I've thought about quite a bit, but honestly, for the amount of content that we put out, I think it would take way too much time to do something that, honestly, I think others are better placed to do. So there's one thing I always try to do on this channel, and that's play to our strengths. And we aren't statisticians. We aren't, I can break down a game for you, no problem. But yeah, that's not my bag. So we've always kind of lent into the news and reaction and, watch-alongs and stuff like that. It just doesn't, it doesn't feel like it's a natural thing for us to start putting out formation videos, tactics, stuff like that. Especially when you churn over content as much as we do. Like if you were doing 1 or 2 videos a week, yeah, you'd have the time to sit down, break it down, go through the tactics, the formations, all the little tweaks and stuff like that. The type of content that we make is what would be called in the industry throwaway content, which doesn't have a long shelf life, as an example. So it's kind of a pleasure pain thing, is it worth doing this amount of content, or would you like shorter form content with less of it? I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'm always trying to play to our strengths on the channel, and I think that there are people far better placed than me to break down tactics, formations, statistics and stuff like that. It's just not something I feel I can add much value to. Any chance of a fun tenable stream? I don't know what that is. I've no idea what that is. Sorry. Got me very confused on that one. Right, tonight, let's talk about some of the numbers with Antoine Semenyo. Of course, we'll talk about the release clause number as well. We'll ask, is Liverpool really in the drive, and see for this one. There'll be some stuff on Adam Wharton. We'll talk about Alexander Isak. I'll give you some comments from John Aldridge about what he thinks we need to change. We'll talk about Ibrahima Konate, Dominic Soboslai. We'll talk about that youngster from AZ Alkmaar, Mohamed Salah, Egypt, and a few other bits and pieces. So as you can see, lots to get through tonight. Mighty Maverick said, I can understand. Appreciate, mate. Appreciate it. And look, it's a fair question. And like I said, if you ever do have anything you'd like us to do like that, if I can make it happen, I will. Maybe if we brought somebody else in who only does 1 or 2 videos a week, something like that, we could probably do it. But as I said, for me, it's a constant churn on here. One bit of news into the next. So, appreciate where you are. Right, Craig, what are your thoughts on Usyk vacating the WBO title and Joshua Jake Paul in December? Hand on heart, I didn't know about Usyk vacating the belt. Didn't know about that till you kindly informed me. I guess, look, at this point of Alexander Usyk's career, he deserves and earned the right to pick the fights he wants. And if he doesn't feel like the WBO mandatory is something that excites him, I can get that at this point in his career, He's probably got a couple of fights left. So, yeah, he should have the right to cherry pick who he wants to fight. And with regards to AJ, it's interesting. Very interesting. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I won't watch it. I will absolutely tune in. But it will be shocking if he doesn't get Jake Paul out there in 2 rounds. 10-ounce gloves, proper weighted gloves for the fight. So, no 14-ounce, no 12-ounce. So, 10-ounce gloves, 8-rounder, 3-minute rounds. If he doesn't get him out there in 2, it's a holy disgrace. But 50 million quid. Johnny Nelson earlier on was saying 50 million quid is what he's going to make for 8 rounds. I mean, I can absolutely understand him taking that money. But we just need, in the boxing community, him to really go in there and show that there are levels to this shit, and to absolutely just starch out Jake Paul in 2 rounds max. Right. Do you think we're in for a right winger in January, such as Rodrigo or Semenyo? Said Jimmy. Well, I will answer that, Jimmy, in 2 seconds, because I've got plenty to go through on Semenyo in particular, but I want to just get to these comments. What percentage we get Semenyo, do you think, said Spency? And thank you, mate, for being with us as a member for 4 months. So I have a lot I can talk to you about with Antoine Semenyo tonight, because that's where I did spend the most of my day today, trying to find out exactly what's happening with this. What I would say is this. It now has become very clear he is attainable in January for a few different reasons. One, the release clause, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what I don't know yet is if Liverpool are going to act in January or if we'll be gazumped by somebody else. So Arsenal's name has been mentioned with Antoine Semenyo quite a bit. And I think he's a gunner, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a gooner, excuse me. I think he is an Arsenal fan deep down. So I don't know if that will play into it. But what I can say to you is it's very, very possible, and I will run through the numbers involved in a moment. But I'm not going to sit here and say 100%, 80%, because I'm not sure when we're going to make the move. I do feel we will be looking at Semenyo, but it might be one of those Luis Diaz situations where Liverpool may sit on it and think we'd ideally like to bring him into the summer. But if somebody comes, let's say Arsenal or Spurs or United or somebody else, maybe Liverpool's hand feels forced and they try to do it a little bit earlier. But like as I said, I will run through all of that and answer your questions in a moment. Craig, do you think we're in for a couple of signings in January? Congratulations on Ireland making the playoffs. I'm only really confident we'll get one in the door in January. Some may even say that they believe we'll get none in the door in January. I just refuse to believe we won't bring in a centre-back in January. So if you were to put me, gun to my head and say, give me an answer, I would say Mark Gay would be the one I'd be most confident of in January. Based off the reporting around Liverpool, going to do what it takes to get him in. Because I refuse to believe that the club don't think they need a centre-back in January after the way things are going for us. But of course, we also need to know what's going on with Konate, so these things are sort of linked. I'm reading patterns on Semenyo's transfer, which are similar to how it started with Isak. Soft rumours here and there, but they're not going away. Well, as I said, FC Pitchside, I spent the day today trying to unearth what I could. And what I can say to you are the following things. What David Ornstein said obviously is right. You don't need me to tell you that. David Ornstein knows his onions. But Liverpool are certainly interested. He is top of our realistic wish list. Elise is there. But I can't tell you whether it would be January or whether it would be the summer just yet. I'll run through what David Ornstein said just in case anybody hasn't seen it. Basically, the numbers are that Bournemouth may be powerless to prevent Antoine Semenyo's sale in January because his new contract includes a £65 million release clause for January, but there is a key to this. It's only available for specific dates. Now, those dates haven't been leaked yet, but I believe those dates are early in January because the whole point of the clause and the way it is that it gives Bournemouth time to react and bring in a replacement. So there is a £65 million release clause that applies in January, but the release clause for the summer is less than January. Now, again, I don't know the exact number for the summer. I think it's somewhere closer to the 50-55 based off the information that I've been given, but I don't want to say it as a hard and fast fact because, these things are supposed to be private, put it that way. But that's where we're at. So, available to all clubs, by the way, not just Liverpool or not just Champions League clubs. So anybody can go in there in January with a £65 million offer, and Bournemouth would be powerless to stop the player if he wanted the move. That's where we're at. Will this get to the summer? I don't think so. And I'm not saying Liverpool will get him in January, but I'm saying I think January will decide his future. So whether it's us, whether it's Arsenal, whether it's somebody else, I think if we move quickly, we have an advantage. Arsenal, you're looking at maybe moving on Gabriel Martinelli, and then that feels more like a summer thing. I could see a world where Arsenal move for Rodrigo as well. So I do think our best play here will be to move in January if we want to bring him in. But like I said, I can't sit here and tell you categorically that that's what's going to happen because I really do not know. But I knew there was a release clause. I didn't know the number. And even when I found out earlier on the information that there is a release clause that's active in January, I didn't know the number till David Ornstein said it. So 65 million is where we're at in that one. It's definitely in the realms of possibility. I think you'll see very soon whether Liverpool will make this play or not, because we know Salah's going to be away. We know that Semenyo isn't. And again, thank you to everyone that told me that Ghana hadn't qualified for the AFCON, because I didn't really know that in all honesty. So it is possible in January. And he's looking like the target for the wide position. But let me know, would you be happy with Antoine Semenyo in January at 65 million? Because there is a lot of moving pieces here, which I'll go through in a minute. We'll talk about Adam Wharton as well, because it looks like Liverpool's interest there might be a little bit wide of the mark, according to one particular journalist. So, do you want Semenyo at £65 million? So, do you want Semenyo at 65 million, yay or nay? As I said, the release clause does go lower, and I was told 50 to 55, but again, I don't know that as a fact, so please don't take it as a fact. That's where we're at with Semenyo. So over to you guys now, and we'll see what your thinking is, and if you've got any questions on it, if I can answer them, of course I will. I want to just credit, of course, David Ornstein, who broke this story today, and there's been a little bit more added to it as well from Ben Jacobs. Ben Jacobs said, although Bournemouth will fight to keep Semenyo in January, they're realistic that an exit is possible given his vein of form. Spurs and Manchester United considered Semenyo over the summer, and then he goes on to say, understand Liverpool hold an interest heading into 2026. So 65 to me feels good. We were talking about this yesterday, and I was saying to you guys, I think you're probably looking somewhere between 60 and 75 million quid when we spoke yesterday. And this is before any of us had knowledge of the number in the release clause. So it feels reasonable in a mad way for a Premier League proven player. And if you look at the comparables, if you were to go and bring in Rodrigo, you're probably talking in pounds sterling, 80, 85 million. If you were to be lucky enough to get Elise down the line, you're probably talking upwards of £100 million for him. And again, is he really attainable? Will he want to leave Bayern Munich? I don't know the answer to those questions. But Semenyo, if you can convince the player, then it's job done. Because you know the release clause. Bournemouth are helpless if you get it within the dates. And the dates are important. The dates are important because Bournemouth have been very clever what they've done. They've made sure that they're not going to be left short with anybody. I was going to say Liverpool, but with anybody coming in, let's say, end of January with a late bid or to trigger the release clause, and then they're left with their pants down and no way to replace them. So I don't know those dates. I'm still trying to figure them out. But I would imagine it's something similar to the first couple of questions. Or first couple of questions, geez. First couple of weeks. Sorry, I'm confused by something I'm seeing in the chat. First couple of weeks of the window, I would imagine, is when it's active. Where did we watch the Germany game? I've no idea, but I know Flo had a couple of assists. They were 4-0 up at half-time anyway, going into that one, and Flo had a couple of assists, so well done to him. Nick Vultmada opened the scoring, and then Florian Wirtz, I think both assists were for Leroy Sané. I've seen one of the assists, by the way. Lovely ball. Plays from deep inside his own half, over the top, into the path of Leroy Sané. So good to see Flo looking sharp. If Konate announces that he's leaving before January, would we need 2 centre-backs? Yes, but not in January. So if Konate announces... Look, in your question, I think you mean if he announces that he's leaving before the January window, because he's not going to leave in January. I really don't think you'll see him leaving the club in January. So if he was to announce that I am going to depart Liverpool, I think, yes, you need 2, but you won't get them both in January. One would be for the summer. That's my guess at it anyway. And I don't know where I'm at with Konate. You know, I tried to say yesterday, I looked into the quotes that he gave out, and I felt a bit more upbeat about it, but I still wouldn't feel confident one way or the other in trying to guess whether he stays or goes. Flo has a 9.6 ratings at FC Pitchside so far. Oh, we'll take that. We'll take that. Bransfield, did you email that address? Because Connor hasn't sent it over to me, so I just wanted to make sure, dude, that you emailed that address in, because I did promise you I'd send something over for your dad's birthday, but Connor hasn't forwarded me on an email yet, so, or a postal address yet. Bobby said, evening, Craig and everybody. How's the news? Exciting today, mate. Exciting. The Semenyo stuff's really heating up. We're going to run through some numbers in a minute that Sam Maguire posted about Semenyo, and we'll take you through what those numbers mean and what he excels at. We'll talk a little bit as well about the sell-on fee that's in there that could see Bristol net a pretty penny. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at the minute. We're just still talking about the Antoine Semenyo situation because it's the biggest story of the day, really. Right, let's talk about these underlying numbers then for Semenyo. Sam Maguire posted something and he said, I do like Semenyo, love a two-footed finisher. It just makes them unpredictable and even more of a threat. I don't like buying attackers who are running hot. I get what he means there. And I guess the question is, are we buying Semenyo because of this little burst of form at the start of this season? Has this been the deciding factor? So I do get what Sam means when he said, I don't like buying attackers who are running hot, because maybe you're just getting them at a good time in their career and maybe it's not going to have longevity, this particular purple patch. So get what he means, but still the numbers look impressive. Shooting wise, he is above average for a pursuit. So this is shooting performance of Antoine Semenyo, Premier League 25-26. He is above the average. So the average is at about 70%, and he's at about 80% with regards to his efficiency there. Every number, every metric outside of right foot shooting and headed shooting, he is well above average in. The right foot and headed shooting is probably down because he scores with both feet and shoots with both feet. If you look at the statistics there, between left and right foot, he utilises both of them when finishing, so you would expect at least one of those to be lower than the average because he is two-footed in his finishing. Craig, so was this transfer defo on in January? Well, so I don't mean this to sound rude, but I've never said it's defo on in January. Yeah, I'm very careful with the words that I do use, mate. So unless you hear me say this is 100% happening, take it that it's not until I have that information. Somebody else might be able to tell you it is 100%. I just know the interest is real. The release clause exists as has been unearthed by David Ornstein. We know the amount, but what we don't know yet is the preference of the player and who else is really going to be in the mix for a move. We know Arsenal's name has been linked. We know Spurs and United's name has been linked. But I think if you're looking at Manchester United, their priority is going to be to bring in a midfielder. They're going to have to bring in somebody of an Elliot Anderson, somebody of that ilk who they've been linked with. Arsenal, my gut feeling is that they'll want to move Martinelli on first. So if we want Semenyo and we wanted to move quickly, I think there is a chance there to do that. And Spurs, I really don't know the situation at Spurs, to be honest. But you would like to think if we went head to head with Spurs, we'd win that battle. So that's kind of where we're at with it. And like I said, I'm interested to know if you guys think that £65 million is good value or not. So if we wait for the summer, like I've mentioned, that release clause goes down, but probably gives other clubs more time then to get their house in order. And he'd probably become more appealing, obviously. If the release clause goes down, he becomes more appealing to other clubs. So we do have an ace up our sleeve, of course, with Richard Hughes. So let's wait and see there. This from Moby Haig said Bristol City have a 20% sell-on fee on the profit that Bournemouth paid for him. So £10 million. So anything above that, Bristol City are entitled to 20% of. Should be a sizable chunk for them with £65 million release clause. Nice signing by Richard Hughes. Played an influential role during his time at Bournemouth in 2023. That is a hell of a markup as well, isn't it? Bringing him in for 10 million. Getting him Premier League proven, and then putting that 65 million release clause in. So good business there for Bournemouth if indeed they do sell. Tanya said Semenyo supports Arsenal. Yes, we know that, but it doesn't really mean anything if Arsenal aren't really in the mix or ready to make a move. Yeah, so we'll wait and see. Like, for instance, we know that Ollie Watkins is an Arsenal fan, but he plays for Villa. So, if Arsenal aren't ready to make the move, or maybe, look, I'm always calm about these type of situations because if a player doesn't want to come to us, fair enough. It is what it is. But you'd like to think that if we're really sniffing around and trying to make a move, that we'd have somewhat of, not an assurance, but we'd be fairly confident that we could get it done. JT Cliff said, Craig, if the club wants Semenyo in January, that's fine, but the priority is defence. We could also see Rio go on loan to Bournemouth for the rest of the season. I really don't expect Rio to go on loan, but stranger things have happened. You're right about the priority being defence. I mean, I've no argument about that whatsoever. But I do still feel we're short of an attacker. So as a fan, I'd be over the moon if Semenyo came in January. But if I was to prioritise it, I'd be with you and say the priority has to be defence and bringing in a centre back. Is it possible to trigger the release clause now before the window? Yes and no. Could you get a deal done early? Yes, you could come to that agreement with Bournemouth and register your interest to say, look, we're going to do this. But either way, the paperwork couldn't be registered until the January window opens. Of course, everything could be signed off until the registration part. But yeah, of course, if Liverpool made it clear they wanted him and the player made it clear he wanted to come in, yeah, you could say to them, look, we want to give you as much time as possible to bring in your replacement. We're happy to pay the 65 million release clause. Maybe you talk about the structure. Maybe you try to negotiate the structure more favourably in terms of when the money's paid or how much up front. So yeah, look, it is possible, but I'm not sitting here saying that I know anything of it. Would I take Van den Berg back? No, I wouldn't. I can see why you ask. He's done well since going to Brentford. I just think the likely one to come back would be Kwanzaa, as we mentioned before, because not only do we have the buyback option, but he's already signed an agreement for wages and the contract if he's to come back, as was reported a few weeks ago. I'm going to say to you who I want point blank. If we're talking about centre-backs, I want either Bastoni, Nathan Collins or Mark Gay. Those three. Two of those three would be amazing. If Konate signs one of those three, be more than enough until the summer, perhaps, where we'll sort out Joe Gomez's future. But right now, one of those three in January is a must. And Mark Gay seems to be the obvious one because, Palace would rather, I would think, bring in some money, but also they'd have to have a replacement lined up as well. Craig, is it concerning? Can you drop the all caps, by the way, Bransfield? It's just, just drop the all caps. Is it concerning Wirtz is doing well for Germany? No. Why would that be concerning to me? I get where you're asking, like, is it concerning he's doing well for Germany and not for Liverpool? But he didn't do well the other day. The German media were having a pop at him after the recent performance. So I'm happy to see him doing well. Confidence breeds confidence. So if he's doing well over there, hopefully he can carry that back into his Liverpool career. Wirtz does well everywhere except Liverpool. That's just not true, though. Your name's no like Eli, and there you are spreading a falsehood. Look at the media reports about Wirtz's performance in the last international game for Germany a few days ago. He wasn't pulling up any trees there, and he wasn't getting much credit. Actually, I did a segment on it on the channel here, going through some of the reaction from the media in Germany, and it wasn't great. No disrespect, but Collins in the same breath as Bastoni. Collins is good, but Liverpool good? Yes, he is Liverpool good. So you say no disrespect, but you absolutely mean, and you're not disrespecting me, but you're disrespecting Collins by saying no disrespect. He is that good. Watch his performances for Ireland in the last few games. Watch not only his aerial prowess and his defensive ability, but watch his distribution. His distribution, I said this to Connor the other day, it was like watching somewhat of a Van Dijk with the diags he was hitting and his ability to do it. And leadership is there in fucking spades. He's a natural leader as well. So for me, no problem. I would take Collins, I'd take Gay, and I'd take Bastoni in a heartbeat. Any of those three and I'd be happy. I'm liking Collins. He'd work hard for us. Look, the problem with Collins is twofold. He's the captain of Brentford and he has a very long-term deal. I believe he has 4 years left in his contract and the club have an option of another 2 there for Collins. So he has a long-term deal at Brentford, so it wouldn't be easy to get him out of there. But honestly, if you've doubts about him as a player, I think you should revisit it because he is a really, really good centre-back. Right, let's go through more of this stuff because I've quite a bit to go through today. Kind of, I would say they're weird comments, but they're probably not. But they're interesting comments from Amanda Staveley, one of the former Newcastle owners. And speaking about Alexander Isak and his move to Liverpool, she said, "We just love Isak. We know he's going to do really well at Liverpool. He's a great player. Liverpool have got an extraordinary player." Interesting comments from Amanda Staveley, that one. It's nice to hear some positive stuff spoken about Wirtz because, not Wirtz, excuse me, about Isak, because a lot of the stuff we've seen have been everyone just trying to basically write him off already. So it's nice to see the former Newcastle owner speak glowingly about the quality of the player and that she believes he'll excel at Liverpool. Collins is class. Would absolutely take him at the club. Good call. Thank you, Eli. Look, I had my doubts at first, mate. I did. I floated the idea to myself of Collins over the summer. And I had my doubts. But the more I've seen him, particularly for Ireland, the more I just see a natural leader with a real presence and a real ability to just drive a team forward and again, resolute defending. When you're playing for Ireland, you're not dominating possession a lot of the time, and sometimes it is backs to the wall. But his distribution was what really stood out for me because it was very impressive. The real Johnny Sins said Gakpo and Dom should be taking pens from now on. Oh look, I've always felt uneasy when Mohamed Salah's taking penalties. And I don't know if I've any right to feel that way because, look, everybody misses penalties, but I think it's more the way he takes them that always made me feel like it's a bit more of a hit and hope, perhaps. When Jimmy Milner stepped up to take a penalty, and I'd never had any doubts in my mind. When Gerrard stepped up to take a penalty, I never have doubts in my mind. Everybody misses them, but there's just something about the way Mo steps up to take a penalty that I never feel assured that he's going to score. It's Mo, so you're confident he's going to score, but I never feel like it's a certainty that he's going to score. Prefer Elise, but yes, if not. Oh, Sam, dude, I'm with you. I think we'd all say that Michael Elise would be top of the list if you were to pick a Mohamed Salah long-term replacement. But I think, and this is just my opinion, Craig, is your shoulder better? No, not really. It's better than it was, but I'm still in pain, which is why you see me crossing my arms every so often, dude. But thank you for checking in. It's a lot better than it was, but it's still uncomfortable. So, I think that what we've spoken about here on the channel over the last week is actually coming into the thought process of the club. I feel like Liverpool are now thinking it's time to look past Salah. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, because Salah still has a role to play. But I feel like they realise now that they don't have six forwards. The manager, for whatever reason, still won't play Chiesa. And Rio, he isn't ready yet. So he shouldn't be playing week in and week out. He should be brought in over the course of the next 18 months, gradually, bit by bit. So with that, and with Salah being away, and Salah's form this season, although he's still a highest scorer, isn't the same as it was, or he isn't looking as sharp as he did, I think the club are starting to realise, yeah, maybe now we do need to start to look to the future. And I want to read you through something John Aldridge said. He said, what we don't see enough of in the modern game is wingers who decide to switch during matches aren't quite working out. And you can read this piece on The Echo. He always writes an opinion piece there every couple of weeks on The Echo. So he said, what we don't see enough of in the modern game is wingers who decide to switch during matches if things aren't quite working out. Everybody is too robotic and under too many instructions to stick precisely to the game plan. In my day, if a winger was having a tough time or being bullied, he would swap with his teammate on the other side, and it gives the defender something new and fresh to worry about, and the changeover happens. I'm sure Salah can also operate centrally, but could somebody like Hugo Ekitike have moved to the right at the Etihad? Cody Gakpo could have been given a go there at times, maybe. It's all about fitting the pieces into the puzzle in an attacking sense. Slot has the players to tear teams to shreds on any given day, but it is about making sure he gets the combinations right, not only game to game, but also in-game. And the robotic thing that Aldo spoke about there, now he didn't label that at Arne Slot, but I feel that the style of football we play under Arne Slot is a bit robotic and is a little bit like, I don't know how else to phrase it, so I'm going to say football by numbers, like paint by numbers. It is all strategic movements, do this, then lead this pattern to that pattern. And I don't think, under Arne Slot, there is enough room for expression, self-expression, freedom. We talked about Wirtz getting the best out of him. What do you do to do that? Well, you probably have to let him roam. You probably have to let him find the pockets of space naturally. And one of the things about the wingers, the points he makes about not swapping sides, I 100% agree on. We've seen this with Mane and Salah. They did swap occasionally during the early days under Jurgen Klopp. You would see them popping over all over the pitch, and it gives the defender something to think about. We are very regimented under Arne, and it's one asset of the way we play, or facet, excuse me, of the way we play that I don't really like. I find it a little bit sometimes boring, for want of a better word. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but it doesn't feel like there's freedom or fluidity at times to the way we attack. It's far more regimented. It's far more preconceived. Is probably a good idea. Right. Brad said, do we see Liverpool getting back into a rhythm? I'm unsure at this rate, mate. I'm unsure. I'm hopeful, Brad. I'm hopeful. But, you know, that Manchester City game, that gave me some more concern. And it's not because we lost. It's the way we lost. And the way we just didn't really look at it in the game. We looked so different. But maybe that was to do with the way they set up. But that also concerns me. Because I didn't see enough adjustments from the manager quickly enough to, like, it's very clear a couple of things. That Haaland was going to be sitting on Konate. That he was going to be making sure if he's to have a battle with one of our central defenders, it's going to be Konate. And also, they put 2-3 men out to make sure that Salah was, one, being roughed up a little bit and was given no space. And I would have liked to have seen Arne see this quicker and make some tweaks and changes to it. Because if there's one thing we've all praised Arne for, especially last season, was that in-game management. Didn't see enough of that at the Etihad. So that's what's concerning me about, are we getting back into a rhythm? Because I don't know that they know still what everybody's best roles are, the best way to set up. I feel like he's still finding that out or figuring it out. And thank you, Brad, by the way. 9 months with us as a member. Appreciate you. Ironhead 46. What am I missing? We just dealt with the Semenyo stuff, which of course I will go back over in a little while. Now we're just speaking about the fluidity of our attack and what we're kind of lacking. And I think what we're lacking is that bit of freedom. L Stew 86 said, well, it's Dutch football basically. You're right though, not always best to watch, but sweet when it works. Definitely. Look, I can understand why he's trying to do it. Everyone knows their roles. Everybody does this. But sometimes, especially when you come up against teams that play with a low block, I think that bit of freedom is what's needed. And you see it with us when it gets to desperation stage and the manager starts bringing on more attacking players. At that point, they can't really have hard and fast positions. They've got to kind of just find the areas that they can do damage in. And I wish in attack we could do that a little bit sooner. And we spoke yesterday about the idea of maybe playing with a deeper line 2. And I think that might give a bit more confidence that, yes, if we are turning over possession, that we have enough numbers and bodies back that we can mop it up. Whereas now, and something I've said year on year on the channel, all the way back to the Jurgen Klopp days, is we're at our most vulnerable in possession in the opponent's half. Not when they're in possession. It's when we turn over the ball that we get punished. Johnny Sins said, Indy Kayla 10:30 exclusive Semenyo news. Well, I'll still be on at 10:30. So let's see. Let's see what he says then, mate. Yeah, you let me know what he posts at 10:30 and I'll pretend to be shocked. Because I'm sure it's going to be I'm going to make a guess at it. It's going to be some variation on the release clause and January. So he's going to talk about Liverpool going to go all out to get Semenyo in January. That's what I'm going to guess he's going to say. On holiday, I met a Dutchman who supports Dortmund because he doesn't like Dutch football. So, I think just to say Dutch football is kind of stereotypical, but I understand what he means. You know, there are aspects of the way Arne wants us to play that I like, but there are other aspects of it that I find too monotonous and boring. And at the minute, I don't know what he's looking to do or what style he's looking to play, because we feel a bit all over the shop at the minute. I've absolutely no confidence that Liverpool beat Forest at the weekend, said Stevie Boy. To give you my answer, I'm going to have to kind of go back in time a little bit. If this was happening in the second week after the international break, I'd feel a lot more confident. The fact that this is our first game back after the international break always concerns me, because we seem, in my memory at least, Stevie Boy, we seem lethargic after an international break. You know, United game, we weren't at it, wasn't good enough, and we lost after the international break. So I'm not expecting it to be vintage, but we know what they're going to do. We know that they're going to sit deep with Sean Dyche. We know they're going to defend with a low block, and we know they're going to try to force things from set pieces or a counter attack. So you would hope that we now know it's time to go all out from the start. In these type of games, for me, it's pivotal to get an early goal. If you don't get a goal in the first 45 minutes, it causes never-ending issues, because you feel it inside the stadium. They grow in confidence as they sit back. Every set piece becomes a little bit more important. And we know they're going to be coming with long throw-ins. We know that they're going to be looking to win corners, free kicks. So you want a referee who's strong. You want no silly fouls, no giveaway free kicks. So you want Konate to be un-Konate-like in some situations, and you want him to be a little bit more standoffish, not too touch-tight to people, because they're going to be looking for it, because they know that's the best chance. Whereas if we can go there and score an early goal, it'll negate a lot of everything they're trying to do. Easier said than done, I know. But that's why it's important to have a fast start. So to get all the way back to the confidence that we beat Forest, well, we should feel like we owe them one after last season when they came and beat us at Anfield. So you would hope that that gets the boys up. Also, these are professional footballers being paid a lot of money, and they aren't showing how good they are enough this season. So you hope for a reaction, you expect a reaction, but I don't think any of us could say with 100% confidence that we're going to show up and dismantle Forest. We're all just hopeful. Forest is a very good test. They want to do what we had trouble. They want to do what we've had trouble with defending. Yeah, they will sit back, they will defend, they will take their set pieces, they will have their routines, they will be going for long throw-ins, they will be physical, and from memory, they're quite a tall team as well. You know, with Anderson in that midfield as well, they're going to be no mugs. It's going to be a very tough game, but it's at Anfield. We're Liverpool. We're filled full of star players. You would think we should have enough, but then again, we would have thought that last season. Craig, with your psychic skills, can you help me with the Euro Lottery numbers? How do I have psychic skills exactly? I don't really know where my psychic skills are, but I don't play the lotto. I think it's a mugs game in all honesty. Harley said Rodrigo's got something to prove, Salah replacement. So there's one major reason, Harley, why I don't think we sign Rodrigo, and that is the amount of money the whole package would cost. If you're looking at somebody like Semenyo and you're talking about a £65 million release clause, you're also talking about somebody who's going to come in and be on at least half the wages that Rodrigo would want, and maybe even less than half. So for that reason, I just don't see it as feasible that Liverpool will go after Rodrigo, because we've invested a lot of money in players, and so, you know, we've given contract extensions out as well that have been quite expensive. So I just don't see that Liverpool would look at Rodrigo and think that the money is right. I just don't see that happening. I love him as a player. I do. I love him as a player, and I think there is a chance he leaves Real Madrid over the next 6 months or so. He's not getting enough game time there. But I just don't think it's going to be us. This is why I said at the start of the video or stream, I have a feeling it may be Arsenal for Rodrigo, because something just tells me that they will try to sell Martinelli, and when they do, they will start the process of trying to bring in Semenyo next summer. Or not Semenyo, excuse me, Rodrigo next summer. I might be wrong on that. I might be completely wrong on that. It's just a good feeling. Semenyo's on 75k a week. Well, let's say he came into Liverpool, mate, and he went on the, I don't know, 140 bracket, 150. I would say Rodrigo's going to be coming in looking for 300 straight away, straight off the bat. And, then you're looking at his next contract extension, maybe wanting more again. I just don't think long term it's a numbers game that Liverpool are going to want to pay that money. Because if you're going to pay out that much money, you'd be better off putting it into Elise. You're going to get probably more output and pay a small bit less in the whole package over the course of the 4 or 5 years. Thoughts on Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua? It's intriguing. I know Joshua can't come in over £245, which shouldn't be a big issue for him. I mean, what's he usually fights at about 260, 265? Look, it should be legalised murder. Let's be honest about it. There should be no credibility to this. Anthony Joshua has taken a huge payday, and fair play to him. I'm not judging any of the lads. Fair play to Jake Paul for having the balls to step in there as well, because I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't get in that ring with Anthony Joshua, not a chance. So I just want boxing to have some pride restored again. I loved it when AJ flattened Ngannou, because boxing's reputation took a little bit of a hit in the Ngannou Fury fight. It kind of made it look like shit, maybe crossover stuff can't happen. And then for AJ to go out there and definitively dismantle Ngannou like he did, I felt restored pride to boxing, and I need the same here. I'm sure boxing fans around the world are thinking, go in there and spark him out quick smart. First 2 rounds or it's an embarrassment. Simple as that. If he doesn't do it in the first 2 rounds, it's an embarrassment. And I get it from his side. 50 million? 50 million for what should be handy work? Why not? And for us boxing fans, it's going to be on Netflix, so should be straightforward to watch as well. Joseph said, for me, Rodrigo is so overrated. I understand where you're coming from, but I would respectfully disagree. I think he is a very, very fine winger. Is he up there with the elite in the world? No, probably not. But he's right next to them. He's in that next bracket down for me. He would be in my top 5 for Liverpool to sign, but lower down in that. Elise is number 1. I've no problem saying that. Semenyo, I'd probably have him somewhere in the middle. I can understand it, but there's a risk involved. Is he, as Sam Maguire said, are you signing him at a time where he's just playing particularly well? Is this going to be sustainable? Will he be able to, again, do these numbers or play this way in a Liverpool team, in a system that Arne Slot has? But what he does have is something that we're lacking, which is pace and power up top. And a 2-footed ability to score as well, which is really, really impressive. But that pace, power and directness, I think, is something that we are lacking up top, and he could bring that. The real Johnny Sin said, if we were at the City ground, I'd be so confident we'd not win. I'd say we play Sunderland tomorrow at the Stadium of Light, under the lights, 100%. Or let's say we play Sunderland tomorrow at the Stadium of Lights, 100%. Look, I come back to this, mate, when I think about these type of fixtures. We're Liverpool Football Club. And if we want to believe that we can win a Champions League and that we are going to try to defend the Premier League title, these are the type of games that we should be licking our lips at. Forest are 19th for a reason, because they've had a shit start to the year and they're underperforming. So we shouldn't give them any encouragement. And that's what I spoke about, that early goal being so important. We want them to start feeling sorry for themselves. We want them to think that this is going to be another defeat, that they're not getting off the base of that table today. And, we can't let them have anything. No silly free kicks, limit the set pieces that they have, defend set pieces resolutely with 100% commitment when we have to face them. But most importantly, show your class. Match the work rate and show your class. Get that early goal, and I think it'll be a far easier afternoon's work than if we let them build in confidence. We need to make them feel sorry for themselves and feel like it's going to be a long 90 minutes. Emotions in Distress said, I honestly don't like the opportunistic transfers look like panic buys. Well, so I don't know if this will make you feel any more at ease, mate, but we did consider Semenyo in the summer. But for the reasons outlined, as in not blocking pathways and whatnot, it wasn't a deal that Liverpool looked to do. Now, let's be honest about it. January, in its own right, is going to be a concerning month for us because Salah's going to be away and we're going to have to find a way to make it work. So if you can bring in Semenyo in January, I would say in a weird way that I would take that as a positive sign. And here's why. Because if you bring him in January, I think Liverpool are going to kind of have acknowledged that there's a problem with Salah. And again, it's okay to say that. I'm going to get flack for saying it, but it's right and it's honest. There is a problem with Salah this season. And the problem isn't solely with Salah, but we're not getting the Salah that we're used to. But then again, there's problems all around the pitch. So I'm taking this as Liverpool looking to the future, which is what I've said I want to see the club doing now. It's a perfect time to start to look to life after Salah when he's naturally not here for that time period. Manager's not going to get any flack. He can mess around with the team a little bit. He can try a few different variations, partnerships, and there'll be no media pressure on, Salah sulking on the bench, or the camera won't be panning over to the bench every 5 minutes to have a look at Mo's face because he'll be at the AFCON playing for Egypt. It just gives us a natural period. The real test is going to come after Salah returns. That is when it'll be interesting. Let's say, for instance, we sign Semenyo. Now, big if, but let's say we do. And he starts his life well at Liverpool. There's no way Salah could come back and walk straight back into that team. There's just no way. It doesn't matter what he's done in the past. It has to be based off form. And Semenyo, if he came in, it would be an indication to me that the club think things need to change a bit. And I'd be actually positive about it. This, by the way, I hate saying this. I hate it. I hate coming on here and talking in any way disrespectfully about Salah. But let's be honest about it. It's time to start looking to the Verts, to the Isaks, to the Ekatikes, to that next generation of Liverpool player. We can't now continue to just expect Mo to be the magic man, to just make it happen, to change the course of the game for us. We need to now start having others step up and taking that responsibility. So, we asked, do you want Semenyo at 65 million quid? We've nearly had 1,000 votes. We're about 25 short. We'll leave it running a bit longer, but we would really like your thoughts on this one, folks. Right, some more news to go through. Let's talk about Wharton for a little minute. Jack Lusby, who I think writes for This Is Anfield, if I'm not mistaken, said, despite rumours, Crystal Palace midfielder Adam Wharton is not currently viewed as an active target for Liverpool, and speculation of a transfer is seen as wide of the mark. This concerns me, but I may not have a reason for concern. But it concerns me because, fair enough, if they think Adam Wharton isn't the guy, but we need someone. We need somebody in the medium term to come in and be a number 6. Because Gravenberch's a great midfielder, but he's not a natural number 6. And he's getting more license to get forward these days. So we are going to have somebody who sits in front of the back 4, or as part of a pair that sits in front of the back 4. So if it isn't Wharton, fair enough. But it has to be somebody. Has to be somebody. And that's my concern would more be if we just don't think we need somebody in that position. Because, many of us were talking about this in the summer and last season. And look, I've never felt it was a priority position until this season started, if I'm being honest. If we went back to the summer, a lot of my conversations would have been, I can understand the calls for a DM, but it's not a priority. It's not on the immediate need list. Now, maybe it is. Maybe it is. So if it isn't Adam Wharton, who would it be, or is it nobody? If somebody could give us that answer, I'd be very happy. Because I've no problem with them not thinking Wharton's the right fit for any number of reasons. But I hope the club acknowledge that we do need to do something in that position. Mark Kelly said, agreed, problems all over the pitch. A lot has happened, i.e. Jota. I think Salah has taken this deeply. Different system too. A lot of our attacks previously have been going down the right through Salah. Yep, and saying, look, we ran through some of the numbers that Anything Liverpool posted the other day about how we're being attacked, and we are very clearly being attacked down our right-hand side. It is not an accident. It is very clear through the numbers that we are being targeted down that side. 50% of all the attacks come down the right-hand side. The pitch is split into three segments. That's very clear. That 50%, just shy of 50% of the attacks are coming down our right-hand side. We need to sort that shit out, because obviously teams are looking at that and thinking, well, Salah's not tracking back to help. The forward or the fullbacks like to get forward. There's the space we're going to exploit. And let's be honest, I have enjoyed with it. I watched Roddy Doyle's The Van last night after the results. Pure class. Oh, yeah. Well, good choice that, mate. Good choice. Great film. Right. I want to talk about Kevin Doyle for a second, if I may, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Kevin Doyle, former Wolves, Reading and Irish international, said something on a bit of a hot mic moment or an off-camera moment when Ireland scored, and he turned his attention to Dominic Szoboszlai, and he said, "Take that, you Liverpool, see you next Tuesday." Or "Take that, you Liverpool, Clint." I wish he didn't say that. As an Irishman, I wish he didn't say that. As a Liverpool fan, I wish he didn't say that, because it just sounds bitter and is unbecoming of somebody like Kevin Doyle. So yeah, I guess in a weird way, I almost feel like I need to apologise to all my Liverpool brothers and sisters for the words out of his mouth as another Irishman, because it's just silly. You shouldn't be saying stuff like that, because ultimately, in that context, it's nothing to do with Liverpool. He was playing for his national team, captain in his national team, and look, we're all happy. It's from an Irish perspective that we got the winner, but I don't know. It just felt like a cheap shot at Szoboszlai, who was obviously hurting massively that his international team did make it, and he, as the captain, probably feels the brunt of that pressure. And he said this afterwards. He posted to say, it hurts because we really wanted it, not only for ourselves but also for you. I feel for you. You're always by our side when accompany us to the end of the world. As a team captain, I regret that it didn't work out this time, but I am infinitely proud of every player, staff member and coach. I love being Hungarian, even when life tests me. One day, every detail will fall into place, which is why we work again and again, you two and we too. We owe you and ourselves a World Cup. The work has again begun. I love you, Hungary. So yeah, like I said, I felt embarrassed that an Irish football pundit, former player, would say something like that towards Dom and of course towards our club. But I just wanted to put it out there, as I'm sure some of you have seen it. Nothing to say sorry for. Some people just emotional in the moment. Yeah, but it's just like, there's no need to bring Liverpool into it, especially when it's not like he was wearing a Liverpool shirt at the time. It just felt like, I don't know, it felt like just a bit of a stupid thing for Kevin Doyle to say, in all honesty. Mark said, 100% agree, Craig. Again, causing a difference towards Salah and how everything is changing. Sad to see, but we need to evolve as Liverpool FC. Salah will forever be loved by us. Exactly. It's a really tricky situation to discuss, isn't it? Because we all wanted him to get his new contract because he deserved it. We all love him to bits, but it does feel like we need to look to the future now. And I keep coming back to say the same thing, but that's genuinely what I think needs to happen. It feels like we're carrying one or two passengers in the team now. And look, Liverpool's form problem is not down to Mohamed Salah. Mohamed Salah is not the root cause of why Liverpool are not at their best this season. That's, I hope, clear to everyone. But whatever way you add up the factors, we're not seeing Mo at his best or at his most content. And I again, I'm going to say, because I feel honestly it's honest, I think he's becoming more selfish in desperation at trying to force these issues, and that's detrimental to the team. I've never been somebody that felt like Salah was in the selfish camp. I've always stood up for him in that regard, but I am seeing this season that there are people better placed in certain positions, and his obvious and understandable desire to change it, I think he's making the wrong decisions. I think it's impeding his judgment, and the manager needs to hold him to account for that. Again, hate saying it, but it's how I really feel watching him. There are situations where he should be moving the ball to somebody else. We'd had simple tap-ins, and even in his finishing, even his choice of when to shoot and how to shoot, at times I just feel, again, is questionable at the minute. And yeah, that's my hand on heart feeling of where we are with regards to Salah. I think he's trying to force it, and it's detrimental to the rest of the team. Bradley Warren said, at some point all the greats have to leave the club, but he'll forever be in our hearts. It's so tough though, because we are, oh, how do I say it? It almost feels as if we were wrong to want the new deal for him. And you can understand how, I want to try to phrase this respectfully, so just bear with me a second. When you look at last season for Mo, it was a bit of a unicorn season in his Liverpool career. Now, by that I mean he overperformed last season. And I'm sure that there were conversations with Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes and the recruitment team about the contract extension, thinking that they had doubts about him being able to replicate those numbers or that form again into the future, because it was such a unique season for him. And then you had all of us leaning in with emotion, seeing Mohamed Salah putting up record numbers and wanting him to stay, understandably, because we all love him. But I wonder, is there any buyer's remorse at the minute in the club? Do they feel like emotion led to the decision over fact because of the sentiment of fans, and because of, if you were to say no to a new deal for him based off the numbers he did do last season, how would that be received? I do wonder. I'd love to be in the mind of Hughes and Edwards now to think, are they looking at what's happening this season and thinking, shit, did we do the right thing? Someone said you guys are weird saying can't wait for the AFCON. I didn't say that. I don't remember saying I can't wait for the AFCON. I'd rather Mo was staying with us. What I have said is that the AFCON will give Arna a chance without any media pressure, or, every time Salah's not played, you know what happens. The camera pans to the bench every 2 seconds. Like when Trent came back for Real Madrid. Even when he wasn't on the pitch, the cameraman just from, and it becomes a narrative. And it becomes a problem that is not of our own making. And I don't like it. So the reason I'm intrigued is because that won't be there. There's no way to play Mo. He just isn't going to be around. So we have a chance to look at the balance of the team and maybe address some of the issues. Craig, if you were to let one player go, would it be Salah or Virgil or Alisson? It definitely wouldn't be Virgil. So let me say that one straight away. It's probably Salah now. I would have concerns about Alisson's injuries and how they're becoming a little bit more persistent. But in order, Salah would be the one I'd move on. Second would be Alisson, and then Virgil would be, I don't even want to entertain the Virgil thing, to be honest. But that's the honest answer. And we ran a poll last night where we asked if £100 million offer came in for a Salah in January, would you take it? And I remember it being in the 80% anyway last night that you guys said yes, you would take £100 million offer in January. And I would agree. But remember the other time they came in and they tried to offer 150 million in January. If you go back and watch my streams, then I said don't take the money. And I still believe that was the right thing to say don't take the money. But now for the first time, that type of offer would get my attention if I was Liverpool. And as a Liverpool fan, it will get my attention now. That's where we're at, which feels very surreal 6 months on from an extension that he absolutely earned. But I do feel like he's aging, and I feel like it's showing. And I feel like we can talk about losing a yard of pace. I think it's more than that. I think it's losing a yard of pace. I don't think he's scoring as many variations of goals as he once did. I don't think he's dribbling as well as he once did. Certainly not defending as well as he once did. And I do feel like he is now... There's now a question of if he's an issue in the team, rather than will he be the saviour. I feel like now, for the first time, the conversation of should he be starting is a genuine conversation. Whereas every other season we'd say, even if he's not in the game, he might have this moment, he might have this thing. I think if you took out penalties over the last few months and just looked at it, I don't know if he'd be making a starting 11 week in and week out on merit based off what we're seeing. And I've never felt this way before. So it's a very emotionally confusing time. Right. We'll let this, if we can get this vote to 1.5k, it'll give us a good sample size. So what we're asking is, do you want Antoine Semenyo for £65 million, which is the release clause that is he's available for in January. Now, the release clause is only active for a set period in January. I would imagine, let's say it's the start of January to give them a chance to bring in a replacement. But we also know the release clause becomes active again in the summer for a lower fee. Alejandro said Virgil is the one that stays no matter what. Alisson stays till the World Cup, and afterwards it's his decision. Salah, well, look, I think, let me ask this to the chat. Is there anybody who would have answered the question the gentleman asked me a minute ago differently? So, said you have to lose one of Salah, Alisson and Virgil. Is there anybody who'd answer that differently? Just out of curiosity. If so, please do put it into the chat, and yeah, we'll get to it. So, Liam said, did fan pressure get Salah a new deal? I can't answer that. That would be a question for the club to answer. It was a factor in it, I would say. When it got to the point that there were banners on the Kop saying, he plays with a bow, give him his dough, it certainly wouldn't have went unnoticed that the fans wanted him to get a new contract. So it would have been a part of it, but you would like to think that the underlying numbers are what they were looking at. I think the Ballon d'Or took the joy from Mo's game. Yeah, there's been a lot of tough things for Mo to deal with over the last year. Going out of the Champions League that little bit earlier probably did put pay to his Ballon d'Or hopes, and he would have been right up there, I think, if we'd have gone a bit deeper. Obviously, the tragic loss of Diogo and everything that's happened from that would have been a tough one for him as well. And, of course, the changing of the guard at Liverpool at the minute. Losing Trent, new players coming in, manager maybe, wanting things a little bit different, and the way that we play, teams doubling up on him. Lots of factors. But I do think you're right. A lot of these things a lot of these things have probably impacted him and started to, I don't know, I won't say erode his love, but this is the first time I've ever really felt like there's a conversation about whether we see Mo leave or not. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but it feels the direction of travel may be headed to a potential parting of the ways before his 2 years are up. Martin Lawrence said the biggest problem we have is a lot of our stalwarts from last season's league-winning team have dropped off at the same time. Nobody's seen that coming. Yes, but I still struggle to come to terms with why we're struggling. Like, I get what you're saying, but when I look at the talent we brought in, it still feels like we're underperforming based off what we have. And if you look at the 11s, it's not wholesale change. You know, Bradley was at the club already. So, yes, Trent's gone it right back. Left back, it's been a battle between Robertson and Kirkes. So, you had the option to stay with Robertson. Your centre-back pairing's the same. Your goalkeeper, apart from an injury, is the same. Your midfield is pretty much the same, albeit Wirtz was being played as the advanced midfielder for a lot of it. And then across your attack, yes, you've seen change there through the centre, but still similar left and right outside of Diaz. So, I don't know. I'd love to do like a pie chart of what I think all the issues are and how much each one's weighing into what we're seeing. But the biggest issue for me right now is the manager. And the manager, his team selection and his formation are the two things that I think are our biggest issue. Because, you know, he should have been able to seamlessly knit this together a lot quicker than he has, or show a way that we have a methodology to play with the new players he brought in. It doesn't feel like that was thought through as thoroughly as we would have liked to have believed. We shouldn't be letting anybody but Salah go. No way, said Mark. Well, the question was just which one of these three would you get rid of first if you had to. Paul said, how much can we spend in January staying in the rules? Don't know the definitive number, but it could be upwards of... Look, we have 100 million plus wiggle room without falling foul of FFP. If not more, you know, keep an eye on the likes of Mo Chatra's account. They'd be the ones to give you a better understanding of that. But we're not walking a tightrope or anything. Because remember, as much as we spent in the summer, we did recoup a lot of money as well. Something tells me that Szoboszlai is leaving next summer if we don't tie him down. Watch and see. Oh, he's going to be tied down. He's going to be tied down to a new deal. For a few reasons, and I'll let me just read this out to you first. So Peter Rourke said Dominic Szoboszlai is happy at Liverpool and with his role in the team, so there should be a willingness from his side to try and get a new contract agreed. So look, if he's happy, the club are certainly happy with him. I think deep down a lot of us view him as a future captain. I don't think we need to worry about Dominic Szoboszlai leaving Liverpool. I think there's, as Peter Rourke said there, I think there's a willingness on all sides that will get done. And also Liverpool will have learned lessons about not getting these things done quickly. You know, Trent, that situation as well, Konate situation, Robertson situation. Liverpool would not want to shit the bed on that again. So if you're saying a midfielder who may leave, I've always felt that was most likely to be Alexis McAllister. Because I just got a feeling that he wants to spell in Spain at some point. But yeah, Dom's not going to be going anywhere. Alejandro said we're definitely going through transition while betting in new players. Plus Salah, Gakpo being out of form hasn't helped. Also, Gakpo isn't the pressing monster like Diaz. I think the club have realised what we're missing since Diaz went. I think that's really fair, Alejandro, and I think it's really clear to us as fans that we're missing dynamism, you know, because Gakpo is a very good footballer, but he is somewhat limited in his attributes in a way that maybe Diaz or Mane wasn't, in that, you know, they were extremely versatile, probably unpredictable in some of the manipulations of their body, as an example, with some of the ways they bring down balls, some of the ways they found to get past people, some of the goals that they scored were very unique to those type of players. Whereas with Cody Gakpo, it's a bit more, feels unfair to say one-dimensional, but I don't think he has as many tools in his toolbox as a Diaz or a Sadio Mane. And it does feel like maybe now the club think that not replacing Diaz is a mistake. And they should feel that way, because it was. It was a mistake. You know, I don't think many Liverpool fans would agree or disagree that it was a mistake to not replace him. Do you think Owen is still loyal to Liverpool? As in Michael Owen? In his heart, yes. You know, I've no time for Michael Owen personally. He's an incredible footballer for us, but once you signed for Manchester United, that was the end of my goodwill towards him. But I think in his heart, he still absolutely loves Liverpool. Yeah, I do. I also feel like he feels hard done by the treatment he does get, maybe from people like me or other Liverpool fans. But I feel very comfortable with my position on that one. Yeah. I always had a feeling as well, sometimes with Michael Owen, he felt like England's Michael Owen more than Liverpool's Michael Owen. Would you take Collins at Liverpool? Glenn, I spoke about it at the start of the stream. 100% I would. Now, obviously we're Irish, so maybe we see a little bit more of him than others. But somebody to start said he'd be nowhere near good enough, and I said I disagree strongly. I think Nathan Collins, Mark Gay and Alessandro Bastoni are my three centre-backs that I want at Liverpool. Give me any combination of those and I'd be over the moon. I think our team is evolving, signing ball-playing players rather than Klopp's hard-working players. So, interestingly, with Klopp, when you say hard-working players, I felt like that was more in the middle of the park, that we had the Jordan Henderson-type players. And we always had flamboyant players. Mane, Firmino, Salah. Like, we had players who could do something with the football. But we just don't have the same... What's the word I'm looking for here? Bite in the middle of the park. We have really technically gifted footballers, but they don't seem to have the same snidiness, shithousery, darker side. You know, whatever way that works for you. I think they're a little bit too honest, if that makes sense, in the middle of the park at times. Not enough shenanigans. Owen said he had no club to go to. Liverpool didn't ask him at the time. United came in and said, I don't blame him at all. That's absolutely fine, mate. That's, like I said, we all have our own views on this. You know, it goes back a bit further than that for me. It goes back to when he went to Newcastle. And if he had he didn't seem to want to wait. Liverpool were playing a game at that time, from my memory anyway, where they wanted to try and get him at a fee lower than Newcastle were willing to pay, and they wanted him to hold his nerve. But I felt like he didn't think it was going to happen, and he went to Newcastle. And after that, look, he can dress it up whatever way he wants about going to United. I don't give a shit. You went to the enemy. Simple. You know, you can say Paul Ince done it, but I don't really give a fuck about Paul Ince either, in either direction. It felt very disloyal when Michael Owen went to Manchester United, especially because it's not like he was going in there in the prime of his career. You know, he was going in there to be a bit part player anyway. So you really sacrificed all that legacy to get a pittance of a league title and be hardly used. It just the whole thing stunk to me as a Liverpool fan. But like I said, I respect your opinion as well. Right, let's end this poll. So 85% said yes, they would take Semenyo at 65 million quid. Appreciate everyone that took part in that. Let's talk about this from Sasha Cavalieri, that said, Liverpool have submitted a final contract proposal to Ibrahima Konate as the club feels this is the most generous offer yet. Accepting it would place him among the club's highest earners. Well, of course, it's going to be the most generous offer yet. You usually don't start going fucking backwards with numbers, Sasha. So talk about stating the bleeding obvious. We know Liverpool have a contract proposal in with Konate, according to various reports, but I think this is it with Konate. You know, there isn't going to be another negotiation. I think that we're going to know, and he said it himself. We'll find out his future soon enough. But it's how do I say this? He doesn't deserve to be paid amongst the club's top earners for me. He just doesn't. But it's not my call. It's not your call. It's up to the club. But should he be up there earning the type of money that, let's say, a Salah was a year ago, or a Virgil was a year ago, or a Trent was? No, not for me. I think he's 150, 160 million, or excuse me, £1,000 a week defender right now. So I don't know what the offer is, but you know, if I hear he signs a new deal and he's on 220, 250 grand a week, I'll be very surprised. But ultimately, I want him to stay more than I want him to go. I do want him to stay. I just don't want it to be an obscene amount of money, because I think that would set, again, another dangerous precedent about letting the contract run down. And I think Liverpool need to remove this side of the equation because it's happening too often. Could we do a deal for Semenyo by offering Curtis Jones or Elliott and try pay a lower fee with a player plus? Of course you could. I don't imagine Curtis Jones is going to be moved on at all. Harvey Elliott, maybe. But you'd want to get that assurance, right, that Elliott's going to get the playing time. Because if he is recalled back from his loan, can he be loaned out to another Premier League club, by the way? I don't know the ins and outs of this because it doesn't happen too often. Is there a way he could be recalled and then reloaned back out to another Premier League club? So have 2 Premier League loans in one season? I don't know. Is that possible? I genuinely don't know. The back of my brain says there's something I've read before that said it isn't, or maybe I'm misinterpreting something else. But I've seen about the recall, but I haven't seen whether it be to stay at Liverpool or go elsewhere. Now you could sell him. You could absolutely do that. But on the loan thing, I don't know if there's something in the rules to stop more than 1 Premier League loan in the season for a player. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I just have something in the back of my mind about it. Mayo or ketchup? I don't eat mayo, so easy for me. It's ketchup. Craig, I thought Harvey was limited to playing for 2 clubs in any 1 year. He played 2 games for us already. That's what I'm saying. I have some doubts in my mind about the ability for him to go back out on a loan. But you could sell him, I think, Christina. I think you could sell him to a club. You just couldn't have this loan malarkey again, I think. Good to see Gakpo getting man of the match with a goal and an assist tonight for the Dutch team. Yeah, great to hear. Honestly, yeah. I just want our players not to come back injured, Glenn. That's my first priority in these international windows. But if they can do well as well, that's a bonus. You said, I said Collins isn't good enough. It's hard to explain. He is good enough, but I'm thinking as a VVD replacement, maybe I'm being snobbish. Well, I didn't call you out by name, LSU. I just said somebody earlier on said that they don't think Collins is good enough. And I can understand why you wouldn't think he's good enough, because, you know, up until maybe a year ago, I wouldn't have had him in the conversation either. Maybe I've just kind of looked out for him a little bit more, or gone out of my way to see him play, and I've been blown away by how good he is. If you're talking about leadership, I think that leadership is going to be in the defence from Mark Gay if he comes in going forward. I think he is the future leader of the defence, even if Konate stays. If Mark A comes in, I think he's going to be the guy to lead that defence after Virgil. Now, he won't be the club captain. I would guess that that's going to be Szoboszlai longer term, but as a defensive leader, I think it would be Gay. David said, really enjoyed the 2.5 hour stream last night. So did I. Yeah, like I said, there's ups and downs to it being quiet. Good part is we get to have a chat, get a bit more in-depth conversation. And downside is obviously you'd like your numbers to be higher sometimes. But yeah, it's look, I enjoy chatting with you guys every night. Feel bad for Elliot. I think Brighton would have been a better fit for him, said Alejandro. Oh, dude, the whole thing, the whole thing just really feels very unfortunate because he could have been at Liverpool doing the same thing now, getting a few minutes here or there, not really starting. And I think the reason a lot of us feel extra sorry for him is we know he's a Red through and through, and we know it would have been with a very heavy heart that he decided to move on from Liverpool, because it wouldn't have been an easy decision for him to make. And now when he signed for this club, it would have felt like any one of us signing for Liverpool. It would have been Everest. You would have climbed to the top of the mountain, and you ask yourself, will life ever get better than this? So to leave the club that he supports, yeah, I'd imagine it was very difficult for him. And that's why we all feel so bad for him now that he's not even getting those minutes. Right, I want to talk about, well, actually, I want to ask you guys about a player. So, Team Talk have said that Liverpool are planning a serious bid for AZ Alkmaar's 19-year-old Netherlands midfielder, Kees Smit, spelled Kees, new word, Smit. Arne Slot has approved the transfer for Schmidt, whose playing style has been compared to Barcelona midfielder Pedri. Slot managed AZ in 2020, with Schmidt coming through the youth ranks at the time. Any fans of Dutch football that can tell me a little bit about this young man? Because I know nothing about him. It's very easy to throw around tags like being compared to Pedri, but, is he going to be a Pedri? If he's going to be a Pedri, then yes, this is the type of deal we should be all over, but never heard of the lad. Never heard of him. Nor should I have heard of him. A 19-year-old player playing for AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie. I know nothing about him. Hopefully this time Slot stayed at Liverpool and didn't travel. I don't know what he's done for the international break, to be honest with you, mate. No idea if he's travelled or stayed. I just want the results to improve. Simple as that. It's a disgrace from Emery and Villa for not playing him in the Cup or the Europa League games. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Because fair enough if Unai Emery didn't want him in. But he's played at the level that you could drop him into a Europa League game or a League Cup game and he'd do you justice. So it really feels more than unfortunate at the minute for Elliot there. It almost feels like Unai Emery's doing to Elliot what Arne is doing to Chiesa, in that he's trying to prove a point. Don't bring in somebody that I haven't signed off on, and if you do, I'm not going to play them. If Ibu was playing elsewhere in this form, we would not want to sign him. Yeah, I agree with that. I think most people would. Yeah, I do. I say a similar thing, mate, about the likes of playing Grafenberg or Endo at centre back. We didn't sign them to be centre back, so I don't want them playing in such an important position because we haven't brought in adequate replacements or adequate backup. And you're right. Like, what would you offer Konate if you were Liverpool right now as a weekly wage? Hand on heart, what would you offer him? I'd be in the not moving past 140 to 160. That's kind of my maximum if I was Liverpool. And if he said I want more than that and I'm not signing for that, I'd be willing to let him go because I just don't see the value above that. I don't think Slot doesn't like Chiesa. I don't know the reason why he doesn't play him. Right, how so I can't see any other reason other than he didn't want them. Because it's not a fitness thing. It isn't. He tried to use that excuse last year. But like, yeah, I can't see any other reason, mate, other than him not wanting the player at the club and not. Yeah, there's no other reason. I cannot think of a single other reason as to why he wouldn't be playing him now, because we need somebody like him, and he's not getting starts or minutes, and this is 2 years in. Craig Slott's supposed to be a coach, not someone who's involved in transfers, so why is he not trying to bring out the best in the players he has? All coaches are going to be somewhat involved in transfers. You know, they mightn't have the final say in them, but if they feel very strongly that a player's not going to work for them, I think that opinion will hold weight, especially after you've won the league. So Lukey said 160, Yin Hung said 150, 180 max for Christina, 170 for Badruddin, 180 but a 5-year for El Stew, 120 based on current form, said Kev, 150 for Gerard. I give Konate 20 cigarettes and a packet of crisps. Emotions in the stress, said, like Cara said, Konate is always at the crime scene. He's not wrong, is he? Like, I tried to, and again, this is unfair of me, but I tried to really make it simple the other day when I said, do you think Haaland scores that header if Virgil's standing there marking him? And the answer is no. The ball doesn't get on Haaland's head. Virgil doesn't mistime the jump. Virgil doesn't get too concerned with wrestling arms with Haaland. And that sums it all up for me, because you can never feel 100% relaxed when Konate is playing. Never. He can play really well, and he can be a very, very good centre-back. But you always feel he has a red card in him. You always feel he has silly free kicks in him. And you definitely always feel like he has a mistake in him, even in his best moments. Which is why he is never going to be a Virgil van Dijk, in my opinion. And he's never going to be undroppable. That's my hand-on-heart view of Konate. Want him to stay, good centre-back, but not a difference maker. True, Craig, he's shaky and unreliable. I miss Matip. Even in his best, he's still giving away stupid free kicks. I hate this little thing him and Virgil do of pushing a striker as they're about to shoot as well. I think sometimes that's going to backfire and we're going to give away stupid penalties. Polpo Wood said Leone was doing so well in that match before his injury. Imagine him still on the bench. Oh, it was. I don't want to curse again, but it was feckin' heartbreaking, wasn't it? Heartbreaking, because he looked mustard in that match. And yes, it was a League Cup game, and yes, it was his first appearance. But you know, sometimes you look at a player and you know they've got something about them. Well, we could see why we signed Leone very quickly in that match, and it still feels unreal or surreal that it actually happened. I mean, talk about unlucky. Paolo said Konate didn't even jump. Konate contract should include performance based. I think he did jump, but he jumped under the ball. He mistimed his jump. If my memory of it is correct, Konate jumps. It almost maybe barely grazes the top of his head and then hits Haaland on the head and loops into the far corner. But either way, he's in front of Haaland. There's no way he should be losing that header. None. He's not irreplaceable, that's for sure, said Alejandro. He's not that good on the ball. I think he has the ability to play a good pass and break a line, Konate. I don't think he has the long pass ability that the Virgil would have, but I do think he's able to spot a pass through midfield. I'll give him that. Did you feel safer when Matip was VVD's partner? Of course, 100%. What Joel Matip lacked was maybe the recovery pace that Konate has. But for me, Matip, fit and his best, was a better defender than Konate. That's my opinion. But he wasn't perfect either. But I just think he was more consistent than Konate, yes. Liam said 1,000 Liverpool fans together on a work night. You did this. Nah, you did this. You guys did this. You know, I just turned on the computer. You guys said, let's come in and have a chat. So, yes, very grateful for that, Liam. Yeah, look, I had a conversation with Connor about the channel's future earlier on today. You know, we don't have those type of conversations very often because usually we know what we're doing, and we have our next few years mapped out for us. But I think maybe we reminisced a little bit today, about the future of the channel and where content is at and stuff like that. It all feels real surreal to me. You know, I still don't feel like this is real. This is my job. This channel is ours. All feels mad. Not big on overspending another 70 million on an attacker when we've already spent 300 million on attackers that Slot doesn't seem to know how to use. So where's the 70 million going? The release clause for Semenyo 65. Look, we're splitting hairs here, fair enough. But the way I would look at it, Yuri, is it feels like they know that they made a miscalculation on the left side in particular. Now, Semenyo's two-footed and you can use him on either side, but it does feel like the club now or Arna realises that there's a lack of dynamism in the attack. So say what you want about Diaz and Darwin, but they were a handful for every defender and they fought for every ball and they ran the hard yards and they were unpredictable. And I don't think we have that same level of unpredictability at the minute with what we have in the forward line. So for me, that's probably why I think this conversation is now being driven towards a Semenyo or somebody. Because Rio, he isn't ready yet. All the best will in the world, he isn't ready yet. And he shouldn't be ready yet because he's still a 17-year-old kid. So I feel they just want to sort of tick the box for the long-term Salah replacement and give us another option for more pacey, versatile, direct, powerful forward that we don't have in the wide position. That's my take on it anyway. Our baby giraffe was a great centre half, said Keane. I loved them, man. Absolutely loved them. You know, I love him breaking lines as well. He's just going on these lovely, mazy little dribbles, and yeah, I just loved Joel Matip. We'll sign Gay for now. Pretty sure Liverpool plan to bring in Kwanzaa back in 2027 buyback clause, so he'll be the second centre back we bring in. So on the Kwanzaa thing, the real Johnny Sins, very interesting to find out the other day about that pre-agreed and pre-signed deal for if he does come back, that it's already set out in stone in black and white, his deal to come back, which kind of made me feel along the lines of what you're thinking there now, that maybe the plan is to bring back Kwanzaa, regardless, that was always in our thinking. And if that's the case and the club are happy with that, Gay, Leone, Virgil, and let's say a Konate if he stays, that's a brilliant collection of centre-backs to go with, and a nice mix of experience and youth as well. So look, if that's the plan, send Kwanzaa over to play in a very good league, in the Bundesliga, gain experience, you know, gain some leadership ability, come back in at 23, 24, happy days. If that's the plan, sound. You know, we have the buyback clause in there. We have the pre-agreed contract with the player. So all that remains to be seen is whether and when Liverpool decide is the right time. Wesley, I'm not arsed if he signs or not. If he doesn't sign, fine, we'll get somebody better. Gay, Collins, Bastoni. He does sign, cool. He can't be third or fourth. He can be third or fourth choice for Gay, Collins, and or Bastoni. That is pretty much where I'm at, Wesley. And I've said this for a while as well. And Carragher summed it up really well. You want him to stay, cool, but you're not going to sit here and lose any sleep over or shed any tears if he decides he wants to move on. In fact, if he decides he wants to move on, my real frustration is going to be back with the club again, that we let this happen. Because as a fan, it's really annoyed me that we've had so many players get to this position in recent years. Like, obviously I don't pay as much attention to other clubs' business, but I can't remember another club going through this similar level of players getting to the last 6 months of their deal. Like, so many of them. Virgil, Salah, Trent, Konate, Robertson. Who else we got this year? I think there's one more this year as well. Before that, Firmino got down to it, Mane got down to it, and then we moved to Moment of the Year to go, I think. It's not good enough. The club should be sorting this out sooner because it's going to cost them more in the long term. LFC Journal said, "Evening, Craig. How are you, buddy? We need Semenyo in January and a centre back too." So I'm going to ask this question that somebody asked me earlier on, because it's been playing in my mind since the you have to sell one, move one on. Right, so you have to move one player on. Who are you selling? So let's go through the list that the gentleman said earlier on. Right, so you have to move one of these players on. Who are you selling? Salah, VVD, or Alisson? I want to just see if the answer is as definitive as I think it's going to be. Billy said same. I think if Gay comes in January, he'll be on the bench easily. Konate, yes, I agree. Which kind of tells us where we're at with Joe Gomez as well. Because right now, Joe Gomez should be getting games if the manager rated him enough. Because Konate's form has been so up and down. Would you take Bellingham for 150 million? I was only thinking about Bellingham last night. And what I'm going to say, I promise, is true. I sat here last night and I was reading an article about him being unhappy being substituted for England and Thomas Tuchel saying, tough, basically. And I thought to myself, and I swear to God I'm not lying, I'm so glad we didn't sign Bellingham. And I never thought I'd say that. Like, you've seen all the videos. You've seen how much I wanted Bellingham. You've seen, my cards were on the table pretty clearly. But I swear to God, right now I'm happy we didn't sign him. Because every time I watch the kid play football, he just strikes me as somebody who's bitching and moaning every 5 minutes. And he really, really comes across like his attitude sucks. And I wouldn't want that in the dressing room. And I know that probably sounds like sour grapes because he went to Real Madrid, but I swear I'm being honest. I would have loved him. You've seen how much I wanted him, like, it was clear. But right now, when I've seen what's happened since, and I watch him play for England, and I watch him play for Madrid, and I hear the stories about Dortmund and even with his younger brother Job and the way the family are trying, something makes me feel like we had a lucky escape to some extent. Which, it feels weird because you know what a good footballer the dude is, but it just, hand on heart, if you said to me right now, you got Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister for that money, are you happy? I'm fucking ecstatic with the players that we have. I'm reading some of the comments and I'm glad to see I'm not the only one. Because I don't want it to sound like, oh, just because we didn't get him. Genuinely, I watch him now and I just think, stop. Like, stop moaning. Stop bitching at referees. Just use your talent, man, and get on with it. Because he's an incredible footballer. No doubt about that. Guy's full of himself, not a team player, said Paul Driscoll. What do you think about the price for Julian Alvarez, €120 million that PSG is looking at? Well, there was an article the other day, World of Naturalists, talking about Chelsea, and they were, I'll read it out to you here now. Yeah, here it is. So this article said, Chelsea are preparing a blockbuster £132 million bid to sign Julian Alvarez from Atletico Madrid next summer. I would far, far prefer he went to Paris Saint-Germain than Chelsea, because you know how highly I rate Julian Alvarez. So if he came to Chelsea, I'd really be concerned. Um, Paris Saint-Germain, I can totally understand the link. Absolutely. From the style of football, from the fact that, Gonzalo Ramos isn't really what they'd hope maybe there. And the system, the likes of a centre forward of the ilk of Alvarez and the way he plays, I could see that working. So yeah, as long as he doesn't come back to Prem, I'm all right wherever he goes. It's that Madrid ego and entitlement. It does feel that way, doesn't it? Like, it's not a great look. I think when I watch him, and I just despise the way that Madrid team go on. There is a real sense of entitlement there, that we're Madrid, bow down to us, everything goes in our way. And you see when it comes to the fight, they don't seem to have it in them. They came to Anfield, and again, they talked all week about it being different from the last year, and the form was different, and they still weren't up for it. And too many of them go hiding when it comes time to really do the hard yards. So I kind of, yeah, like I said, I feel like we got off a little bit lucky there. The trend of parents, footballers getting involved behind the scenes with clubs is crazy. Yep. I've seen and heard some stories of the parents trying to get into the Dortmund dressing room because they were unhappy at a lack of minutes for Job or something like that. Just fuck off. Quite simply, like, if I'm the coach and I see a player's parent coming anywhere near it, get out, get away. No, I'm the coach. Piss off. If the player wants to come and talk to me, of course my office door is always open. But yeah, I'm with you on that. This trend of, not just players' families getting involved, but almost having to be compensated as well as others. Yeah. No, like Eli said, I think it's how Jude was raised. Look at how his parents have been banned from the Dortmund dressing room. They fed into their son's egos. It's a weird one, though, because in some way, you've got to build your children. If you're going to be a professional football, you've got to build them to think that they're invincible, right? That they're the best, to have an elite mentality. And you can do that with having some humility and grace as well. But it feels like the humility part of that hasn't really shone through since he's gone to Madrid. Harry says Szoboszlai's deal was smart. He's Liverpool in a player. Look, I love Dominic Szoboszlai, and I will feel very relieved, Harry, when he signs a new deal, mate. Because I think he's the future captain. But also appreciate you being with us for 14 months as a member, mate. Thank you. Right, so Mr. Real Johnny Sins, it is 10:30. What's the big earth-shattering Indy Kayla news that I've been so looking forward to? This is why Xavi is unpopular. He's trying to discipline this lot and they're not happy. Yeah. I'd seen that piece that said that they were in Ibiza partying after games and stuff like that. Right, here we go. So, here's the story that Indicator put out. He said, the exclusive Antoine Semenyo and Miles Lewis-Skelly update. Richard Hughes, Liverpool sporting director, is in direct negotiation with Old Club Bournemouth for the last 2 months for Semenyo. Liverpool are only favourites to sign Semenyo in January. Arsenal don't have cash flow problems to sign Semenyo, but are close to FFP limit without player sales under UEFA's squad cost ratio rule. Miles Lewis-Skelly could be sold to sign new players. So, remember what I said at the very start of this stream about timing, and Liverpool may be feeling like their hand is being pushed to try to get this done. Now, in some ways, I'd be sceptical about Richard Hughes in negotiations for the last 2 months when there's a release clause. But the conversation could be about structuring of payment and maybe not having to pay it all in one go. Yeah, so it kind of feels like what we said earlier on, if that's the case, is going to be true, then that it's a Luis Diaz type situation where maybe Liverpool ideally would have wanted to look at the summer, but if they feel like they become second favourites in the summer, or at least it becomes a bigger headache in the summer, totally can understand them moving now. And I'm not saying this from the point of view of Semenyo wouldn't want us in the summer, but if there's two clubs in the summer going head to head, well, then you've got an advantage as the selling club for demanding that the release clause be paid the way it's written. And you've also got then a player's agent having the ability to try to leverage the wages that the client gets paid. So if you can remove some of that bidding war kind of stuff, even if it is just around wages, signing on fees, stuff like that, by trying to get it done early, then do it. Liam said, Craig, chat, wishing all the happiness, health and love. Thank you, sir. I've loved your positive stuff lately, man. And I'm so glad to hear that your health scare has been sorted, like you mentioned the other day. Because I enjoy your positivity so much, Liam. Thank you. If it's true, then it gives us an advantage over Arsenal. Yes, absolutely. Lucas said, I might be crazy, but I really don't want us buying Semenyo. I don't think he'd be a good fit for us. I would get Gay and a left-footed right winger all in the January transfer window. Look, Semenyo wouldn't be my number one choice. That's Elise. But he'd be somebody who I'd be more than happy to see Liverpool sign. Because he's different to what we have. He's different. He's more direct. He's versatile. Scores with both feet. But I come back to Sam Maguire's comment on his post earlier on. And that last line of Sam's, I totally understand why he's written it. So he said, I do like Antoine Semenyo. Love a two-footed finisher. Just makes them unpredictable and even more of a threat. But this last line is where I totally get Sam's point. I don't like buying attackers who are running hot, as in are going through a purple patch at the minute. I do get his understanding there, because have we got a big enough sample size to say that this is going to be Antoine Semenyo's new normal? Or is he just in a really unique moment? I guess that's where the number crunchers come into their own. But the statistics, the shooting performance of Antoine Semenyo is very, very impressive. So this is gradient shooting grades. Shooting, the average is 70. He's at 80 for the position percent. He's above average in shooting, pressured shooting, unpressured shooting, open play shooting, set piece shooting, and left foot shooting. He's well above average in all of those. The average is in and around 70, and he's at least around 10 points higher on some of them, 15 in others, 20% higher left-footed shooting. He's a little bit below average in right foot shooting and headed shooting, but that's because he's two-footed. So you can see, if he's able to shoot with both feet, that makes sense that maybe he's a little below par with one to the other. But and he credits Gradient Sports, by the way, the ones who put out those numbers. So yeah, that's where we're at with him. Indy says Arsenal don't have the FFP wiggle room to sign Semenyo, so Liverpool are the only favourites to sign him. So I think you phrased the last bit of that slightly incorrectly. I think what he meant is that Liverpool are only favourites to sign him in January. That if it goes to the summer and Arsenal can move players on, then we're not the favourites. I think that's how I interpret it anyway. Let me read it out, the post again from Indy as it's written, so people can, judge for themselves. Said, Richard Hughes, the Liverpool sporting director, is in direct negotiations with Old Club Bournemouth for the last 2 months for Semenyo. Liverpool are only favourites to sign Semenyo in January. Arsenal don't have cash flow problems. to sign Semenyo, but are close to the FFP limit. So for me, I read that as we're only favourites in January. If it goes to the summer, we're no longer automatically favourites. That's at least the way I interpreted it, mate. But appreciate you coming in with a comment. Thank you. David said there's something I don't like about Elise. I don't know, man. I think he's brilliant. I think he's brilliant. I don't think Arsenal will sell Miles. He's so good that he can play in midfield. I wonder, though, are they thinking of doing a similar thing that we did? As in freeing up some wiggle room by selling a player, having a buyback clause in there. So, maybe they plan to bring him back, but they can't get him the game time that they want to get right now. It kind of feels almost like the Jarell Kwanzaa situation, only for Arsenal. Maybe Arsenal fans will be able to give more insight on that, obviously, but I kind of get the feeling that that would be the reasoning behind it more than them just not thinking Lewis Kelly's good enough. Because you could say loan him out, which is understandable, but if you sell him, you're bringing in cash, which gives you more wiggle room for the minute. And yes, you're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit, because if you bring him back in, it's going to be for more than you've sold them for, so you will pay the price there. But in the short term, it would increase, their ability to have that FFP wiggle room. I think Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's Arsenal's biggest ever sale. Is that true? Is that true? Really? Surely they've sold somebody for more than that, no? 40 million quid. Is that Arsenal's biggest ever sale? Jesus, that it just sounds wrong. Yeah, you would think a club like Arsenal, who've brought through some very good players, would have been able to get more than 40 million quid at some point for someone. But I really can't think off the top of my head. That's mad. It is true. A couple of people in the chat are saying it's true. That's crazy. Wow. That would have got me on a quiz question 100%. I would have never thought that there was only a £40 million sale there for Arsenal. Wow. It's because Arsenal tend to keep their best players at their peak. Even at that, though, it's still mad, right? Like 40 million. Wow. There you go. Craig, question. How have you not been copyrighted for the same name, Anfield Agenda, as somebody gets copyrighted today with a similar name using Anfield? They can't copyright me for using the word Anfield. It's impossible. Because it's an area. It's not just a stadium name, it's an area. So whoever got copyrighted for using Anfield, I'd be very dubious that the Anfield part is the reason they got copyrighted. That's the answer. Yeah, Anfield it's not like I'm using the word Liverpool, right? I don't have Liverpool in there anywhere. Anfield's an area. Anfield is not just a stadium. So, like I said, I'd be very dubious that somebody got a copyright strike for using Anfield or got copyrighted for using Anfield, because, like I said, I would say that's an almost impossible thing to hold against somebody. Wasn't Pepe 70 million? That's what they bought him for. They brought him in for that. We're talking about sales. There's an Anfield cemetery. Well, Anfield's an area, like I said, and you can't copyright a place name. So there's no way we could get done for the word Anfield, because, as I said, it's an area. It's not anything solely associated to the club. And also, in another way, it's not a great look if football clubs start doing that to any channel of any fan club. If you try to start pushing back against fan content by trying to stop them using a specific word. We know one instance of it, but in that instance, it was Arsenal, and, it was very clearly about the club. Whereas, like I said, Anfield is but I'd be very dubious that somebody did get that copyright because of the word Anfield in their name. I'd need to know more information because it doesn't sound realistic. Lewis Skelly is just another Maitland Niles. Why did Arsenal fans try convincing us he's the next Ashley Cole or something? Because that's what Arsenal fans do. Everybody's better than anybody else that's ever existed, and their guys are the best in the world. I saw on TikTok he got a trademark letter in the post for it. So what was he doing with it? You know, was he selling something with Anfield on it? Because I've been doing this 8 years, and I've never heard of anybody involved in Liverpool fan content getting any type of pushback from the club unless they were trying to sell something, let's say, with a stadium image on it or, using any of the club's imagery or likeness. So, yeah. You'd imagine, because, they'd come for me quite quickly because we know the club aren't really fond of me too much, as well as I'm aware. So, yeah, it just doesn't feel right to me that that's the full story. You're not a PR machine, so I hope you're not targeted for this copyright BS. Again, how? I don't think it's possible to challenge somebody using a name. And also, I am in a different jurisdiction to some extent as well. Not that I think that matters here, because, like I said, I don't think it's possible for anybody to be copyrighting Anfield in any context, because it's a place name more than it's just, a club stadium. Never seen Anfield rap getting done for the name. Exactly. I've never heard of anybody. That's what I said. I've never heard of anybody inside the Liverpool ecosystem of fan content in any way being held accountable for anything unless they're using player images or stuff like that, selling stuff. Chiesa is also bow-footed. I would just then just get Gay and promote Pinnington and play that 3-5-2, and the way we can get that favouritism out of the way for Salah while he's at the AFCON. I mean, I'd rather bring in somebody who's tried and tested than promoting through a young player. Again, like loads of people in the chat are still talking about it. I would feel that there is something more to that than meets the eye. Were they selling something using the stadium image or the name Anfield? I don't know. But like I've said, I hope, if the gentleman did get it, and I don't know the person from Adam, yeah, I just don't believe it. That it's just about using a name in a TikTok account. No, I don't believe that. Mark said this is Anfield is trademark, not the name Anfield. Maybe getting confused with this. I'm not sure. Not sure. Like I said, it's never been anything I've heard of anybody around Liverpool content getting in any hot water for about names or stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, it'd be an easy fix, to change the name anyway. I want City to win the league because no one cares when they win something. We can't let Arsenal fans have anything, such a deplorable fan base and team. Now, there you go. We've been told. I still prefer Arsenal to win it over City for the reasons I've said before. Yeah, I just think it's. I get where you're coming from with the fans, and I agree, but I've got at least respect for the club. Whereas, my thoughts on City. I think the superstar system is being faded out from top teams in Europe. PSG and Real Madrid are the latest. Yeah, look, PSG tried everything, right? And they won that Champions League for having hard working, honest players and not those superstar names. So I agree. And we kind of got this a little bit earlier with Kloppo because it wasn't about the superstar players, it's about the team. Football is a team sport. And if the sum of your parts are greater than the individuals, more often than not, I think you're going to win. So give me a good team over star players any day. You should trademark 7. No need. Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to trademark a number either. When Arsenal finish second and Arteta gets the boot, is there a chance of tapping up Saka? Probably not. But sure, if we did get him, we know that Arsenal fans wouldn't boo him anyway. They'd stand and applaud. Remember? Just like the Trent situation. So if we did sign him, I'm sure there'd be absolutely no problems. Arsenal fans would applaud him every time he went back. Did we get Virgil in January window? Yes, we did. I'll never forget that Christmas tree post. And James Pearce was the first one I'd seen it at the time. Yeah, it was a December thing for the January window. Craig, why not Alvarez? We need Maka to talk at his ear. It's always been believed that he doesn't want to come back to the Prem, not because of anything against the league, but I think it's the weather and the kind of life in England compared to a sunnier climate. So maybe Paris is more of a possible destination for him, or Barcelona. Doesn't hurt to have star players in a good team, though. Correct, but they have to buy into the work ethic, which, to be fair, any of the big players that have played for us have done over the years. Any news on the Man City charges? No, Daniel, and I swear we heard that it was going to be during this international break, or there was something that said it would be very close to being in and around this November international break. It just feels like this thing is never ending and the can keeps getting kicked down the road over and over again. He does love City. No, he doesn't. There's no fucking way. Nobody loves City. I'm not buying that. What's there to love? Genuinely, what is there to love? Oh, I love playing in the stadium that even when we're winning the league 4 years in a row won't sell out. Oh, I love going for a worldwide Oh no, there isn't one. Yeah, I'm not having that. Which signing did you underestimate the most? Gravenberg was the signing. From them one's Robbo, VVD, Ali or Salah. Robbo, of course. Who thought an 8 million quid signing from Hull was going to be the absolute star he has been? But Gravenberch is the one that I underestimated the most recently. Right, let's finish up this poll. So, wow. I know it's only 500 votes, but 92% said it would be Salah in that conversation if they had to move one on between Salah, Alisson and VVD. Wow, that's nuts. Emotions in Distress said, if you hear Arsenal fans talking about their team, you think they've been winning 10 consecutive league titles. I know, it's crazy. Like, there's a sense of arrogance there that isn't backed up with a trophy count. It's what surprises me the most. Like, there seems to be a real lack of humility for the circumstances. I hope next season our kits don't have them huge 3 stripes. Bring back the Adidas equipment 3 stripes, please. Huh? I'm confused. I'd like them to go back to the trefoil logo. I don't like the kind of triangular version of the Adidas logo. I don't like that at all. Thoughts on Flo tonight? Delighted that he had some assists and put in a very good performance, and hopefully he can carry that good form back to Anfield. Mark said, if it's not us, it's Arsenal over City every time. Could never choose City. Blood money, club buying league titles. They're not awaiting a verdict for nothing. Exactly, Mark. That's my point all the way through. I totally get that people say they'd be unbearable if they won it. I totally get that, people say I want City because nobody give a shit about it, but I just can't ever wish success on a team that I feel went about it outside of the rules. And I'd rather just take the banter from Arsenal fans and have respect for the way they did it than watch another league title go to a club that I'll never give them the credit for those titles, even if they're found innocent, because I don't believe it. Petter said, if you could sign any Chelsea player, who'd it be? I mean, everyone's going to say Cole Palmer. I'd take Caicedo, though. Caicedo for me every day of the week. But I think a lot of people would say Cole Palmer because, you know, people always love an attacking player, but I'd say Caicedo. Other teams forget that if it wasn't for us, City would have won 7 in a row. Yep, agreed. Nigeria out of the World Cup, thoughts? I don't really have many, to be fair. I don't know how strong or in-depth Nigerian football is at the minute. I don't really pay too much attention to it, so yeah, don't really have many thoughts on it at all. Gusto, the right back. Really? Gusto over like Caicedo or Palmer? No, for me it'd be an easy Caicedo. Craig, did you see Wirtz's assists? I'd seen I think it's the second assist for Sané. The one that he played a ball over the top into the path of Sané. That's the only one I've seen. But delighted to hear about his assists. And as I said, I just hope he brings back that good form into his Liverpool career. Why won't this clear? Yeah, it's not clearing on my screen. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to say goodnight, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place, and podcast will be out tomorrow night as well. Myself, Connor and Chris are recording another episode tomorrow evening, so that will be out at 10:45 tomorrow night. Appreciate you dropping in tonight as always, and yeah, we're heading towards the end of this international break, and the good news is there won't be another one until March, so yay. Do drop a like for me if you can, please, before you head off. Appreciate all of your support as always, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.